Hello, and welcome to the Millennial Monologues podcast, where we talk about anything and everything relating to the millennial lifestyle. We are your hostesses with the mostesses. My name is Alyssa.
And my name is Lexi. Thank you guys for watching every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. We appreciate you guys. You can also watch us on Facebook, on Air Media, and on the millennialmonologues.com. So today we're going to be talking about criticism, how to deal with criticism, how to give out criticism, and just kind of the ways that millennials get criticized on not only a day-to-day basis, but kind of throughout our whole lives, the criticism that we receive, and how to emotionally, intelligently pick up on those criticisms and how to deal with them.
Yeah.
So
should be an informative episode. I think especially now that people our age are, just starting their careers and maybe they've been working for a couple of years, and criticism, is everywhere.
Yeah,
it's like you said,
everywhere.
in our daily lives, in work, school, hobbies, activities, just day-to-day basis, everyone's judging.
Yeah, when we were first talking about this, we were saying, you can get criticized at work and hobbies. We kind of put it in those two narrow categories. And then I was thinking, we don't really think about it, but we get criticized when you're new parents. You get criticisms, what you eat, how you dress, how you act. So it's not only just
really those pants.
Like whenever you wear ripped jeans to Thanksgiving.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
If you want to get criticized,
things like that.
Yeah, wear something weird on
I
Thanksgiving.
killed this turkey, damn it. I'll wear what I want.
Like, I grew these beans back in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like, don't tempt me.
I get a lot of criticisms on what I eat because I don't eat meat, and so my family, they don't so much anymore, but I used to get some criticisms on that. I know probably a lot of younger vegetarians probably get criticisms like that.
Well, and there is a difference between advice and criticism. And being, nasty about it and being helpful. So we're just going to talk about the differences there, how to identify them, and then how to, for us, to give positive feedback as well. So, because let's face it, none of us are innocent of, being nasty or judging people. So,
I'm innocent.
Okay.
Who was that? Who said that?
We've got a couple effective ways to deal with criticism that we found from lifehack.org. And Lifehack, just in general, does a really good job with posting stuff. Of hacking life. Their Twitter feed always has really cool ways to, on how to use random kitchen appliances for fun stuff. I know it sounds really random, but I love those. And, cool organization tips and things like that. But this particular article just talks about criticism because, again, we deal with it on a daily basis. Everybody does. So it just says, a couple ways to deal with it. And the first thing you want to think about when you're in the middle of getting criticized is, what can I learn from this? So, it's all about the other person's tone. Whether or not you're going to take it personally, but you never really should. But it just basically says, most criticism is probably based on some truth. Because otherwise, why would you be criticized for it? You know what I mean? Have you ever gotten criticized by your photography, by anybody, by professors, by clients even?
I mean, and we're actually encouraged in photo classes, even if someone has great work, we are always told to give not negative feedback, but give something that they can improve on, something that's not good about it, and then tell them something that is positive about their work. Because if you're only saying, this is great, I love this, that looks good, you're great, you're so pretty, you're perfect, blah, 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 you're not learning anything and you're not growing. And I think the only way to effectively become a better person in the long run is to hear those negative things. You can hear the bad things so you can grow and improve from it. And so I think it's definitely a positive experience to get feedback that you're not so happy with receiving.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely depends on, each individual person too. I know that some people are a lot more sensitive than others, and some people are more not sensitive than others.
Yeah.
So it's, always important to kind of, when you're giving criticism to somebody, be aware of that person's feelings. I know just me in general, when I was working in restaurants, I carefully chose what I said to each individual person, knowing that they would take it in a certain way. So if you're going to give criticism to somebody, you should probably already have a good understanding of kind of how that person is emotionally, and then go from there. But we're going to get to that method that you were just talking about in a little bit. It's actually called something when you do a compliment first and then a criticism. It's called something. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, so you're supposed to learn something, or at least try to. That's what it says. What's the next one?
So value criticism. I think it's important, kind of what I touched on before, to value what you hear. It's just something that, whenever you listen to something, you might automatically just go in the defense mode and get a defense mechanism, put your walls up. I like criticism. It makes you strong. LeBron James.
I mean, it's so true, though. It does. The whole purpose of criticizing people, and I feel like criticize has such a negative connotation, but it's just feedback.
Yeah.
It's constructive feedback. What was the most, if you can think about it right on the spot here, what was the most beneficial piece of advice or criticism that you've ever received? Whether it was in your personal day-to-day life, whether it was for your job, can you think of anything?
I'm trying to think. One was from my website. My dad, he used to develop websites. And so I showed him my website and I built it myself. And he was looking at it and he was like, instead of investment at the top, you should put services. And so that kind of stuck out to me. And at first I was like, no, I'm dead set on the word investment. I think it looks nice and it sounds professional. But I ended up changing it because I took his advice, and at first it was totally off-putting to me because I was kind of dead set in my ways. But I think if you step back for a second or even a couple days and you kind of realize, where are they coming from? A place of love? Is this something that they're actually taking into consideration? Why are they saying this? And also, who's saying this? If this was just some guy off the street that looked at my website and was like, maybe you should do this, then maybe I wouldn't listen to him that much.
Yeah.
But if it's coming from my dad, who has developed websites and has some experience in it.
And he obviously has your best interest at heart, too,
Exactly.
because he's your dad.
Yeah, right.
So that helps, I'm sure.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that was some criticism that I took, and then I actually moved along with the process of even changing, not myself, but kind of changing to improve with that criticism.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. So it also says to respond to the suggestions, not the tone. So we kind of said that a little bit ago, but it's all about, again, listen to the content, not how the person says it to you. And then on the flip side, when you're giving criticism to somebody or feedback or notes or whatever you want to call it, careful about how you say it, because I can't even tell you how many times my parents told me when I was younger, it's your tone. Have you ever gotten that before? Yeah.
When you're not even trying to be
You're
rude.
not even trying to be sassy. It's just coming out that way.
I
and you're
still get this from friends.
Yeah, I do too.
Everyone thinks that I'm just
it's the way you say
so
it.
mean. And I'm just no, I care about you. And I read somewhere that it was your meanest friends are the ones that care about you the most. I don't think that I'm a mean friend, but I definitely think I'm someone that I am not just going to sugarcoat everything and tell you that you're great all the time and that you're doing everything perfect and I love you and everything you do is wonderful. I always have your back. Sometimes a really good friend is someone that, they stick it to you hey, what you're doing, you're messing up your life, or I don't like the way that you're doing this because it's toxic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good,
absolutely.
Those are great things to hear. And if you can't take it, you should probably just kind of step back for a second and realize, why are they saying this?
Yeah. Well, and another good point that I read was, when someone's giving you feedback or notes or criticism, it's because they want you to do better. It's not because they think that you're worthless. It's not because they think that you're just a terrible employee or a terrible person. It's about them wanting to see you succeed and them wanting to coach you and develop yourself and your skills. And with that being said, it's that's why you can't take it too personally, which is what the next one is to not take it personally. Because if they felt like your time and your job or whatever it is was not worth it for them to even try to develop you, then they wouldn't try to give you those criticisms and you would just be fired or you wouldn't be their friend anymore or whatever the case may be. So the next one is to not take it personally. And I think it's really important for people to know that because, again, someone's not going to give you criticism if they don't think that you're capable of handling the criticism and putting it into place and moving forward.
And then also, there's also hate criticism, kind of where you'll see this more on YouTube comments or Facebook or things from strangers. And people that we don't know can give great criticism, but I also think you should take it with a grain of salt if it's coming from someone that doesn't know you personally, because whenever someone can say something that's kind of hurtful, it kind of changes the dynamic of things. It's not so much criticism anymore as it is just kind of like random hate speech.
Yeah.
Ziggy, did you have something to say?
I did. I don't know if this is like the precise time for it.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just thinking of this just now. You know what is super useful?
What?
Listening to other people's criticism of other people. Like if your boss is criticizing your coworker for something, listen and then don't do that thing.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
yeah, learn from other people's mistakes instead of your own. Yeah, that's something that my mom actually always says. She's always like, smart people will learn from other people's mistakes, and stupid people learn from their own mistakes because they're making their own. Yeah. Excellent point, Ziggy. And back to yours, Lexi. The next one is to ignore false criticism. I think that for at least in a job setting, sometimes it can be difficult for people to differentiate false criticism and helpful criticism. So especially like your first week, let's say you're starting a new job and some random guy who's worked there for like a month longer than you tells you to do something the wrong way. How do you go about handling that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, what if you don't even know it's the wrong way?
Exactly. And then someone's like teaching you something wrong or telling you to do something wrong. So it can be difficult to try to differentiate between the two. But I think that I feel like people could probably pick up on those things. Like, oh, well, this other guy told me to do it this way. So who's wrong
I think
here?
then it's like grin and bear it. Like just like, okay, yeah, and just smile and move on.
Ziggy, what do you think?
So this kind of goes into a point that I, would like to make is there's a point where there is criticism coming from people that know nothing about what they are trying to talk to you about.
But how do you know if they don't know anything about it?
Oh, they will tell you.
Oh.
Let me. So I have this story of there was a point in time where I delivered pizzas all the time, and you guys, it might have come up on the show that I do comedy. While I was delivering pizzas, I delivered to this one guy, and he was kind of drunk, but he and I got to talking, and I let slip that I did comedy, and so he wanted me to do a set for him.
Oh, no.
On his porch, just
like
him.
right there? He was like, oh,
yes.
no.
And so and he said, if you make me laugh, I will tip you really good. And so I did my best material. Like my absolute best. Like I've opened clubs with this material.
Had tons of laughs with these.
For 5 straight minutes, he stared at me in silence.
Yikes.
And then at the end of it, he said, well, I've never really done comedy before, but let me give you some advice.
Okay. Yeah, like not welcome.
Yes. Yeah.
So did he tip
say?
you for wasting 5 minutes?
Oh, he did tip me $20. But then But then the real kicker for it is he started requesting me to deliver his pizzas, and he would like make me do sets again, and he tipped really, really well. But it is soul crushing when you over like months tell somebody every single joke you've ever written, and he does not laugh at any single one of them.
Every time that you
So
came over,
how do you
never
handle
laughed?
that though? Like, did you like listen to any of his criticism at all, and like maybe try to implement anything that he was doing?
He wasn't giving criticism as much as he was like, well, I don't think you're funny now, but I think you should keep working at it. And let me give you some ideas of like the things that I like. Like, have you ever seen Scrubs? I really like Scrubs. Why don't you write jokes like the writers from Scrubs?
He wanted you to be his personal comedian.
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
Ew.
Yeah.
That is weird. That is weird.
Can you like refuse service? Like if they ask for you, just be like, I don't want to go to that guy anymore.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean, eventually
I was like,
you
I won't
kinda
deliver
have
to that
yeah.
house.
Oh my god.
And he was tipping me like $20 a visit, but it's not worth the
Yeah,
pain.
it's like embarrassing. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So the next one is smile. So whenever someone is giving you constructive criticism, quit making that weird face. It's important to smile. It's important to let them know that their feedback is valued to you. It's important to let them know that you are taking the constructive criticism seriously.
That is such a fake smile.
That is a terrible one. It's important to let your criticizer know that, you know, you value their feedback and that you're taking it seriously. If you think that it's a reliable source for notes, right? Because like we talked about, sometimes that's not always the case. But in a work setting, it's really difficult to differentiate. So how do you think that you would?
Differentiating
between false criticism and, you know, reliable source for notes.
I think you can tell like fakers and liars from the truthers, you know?
But they might not be lying to your face. They might just think that it, you know, it might just be their opinion.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think that you could do better if you did it this way.
I think if someone seems credible, they seem credible. And if they seem like they're new on the job and it just kind of comes off as like advice that they threw out of their ass, then yeah, I wouldn't like believe that.
Maybe like in the first couple of weeks of a new job experience, you be skeptical, but you have an open mind and try to learn as much as you can to where you can make your own opinions about what the right way to do things is and what the wrong way to do things is.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, you know, some effective ways to deal with criticism. Some more is, this is just a little like infographic that we have on tips on dealing with criticism in school and at work. And it basically just says, imagine how someone you admire would handle the criticism you received and model their own experience.
That is such a good one.
Yeah. So who's someone in your personal life that you really admire and look up to, just in general?
So what's weird for me is when I like admire someone, it's never like a celebrity or someone that's really big.
Just like your mom or something.
It's always, well, not even my mom. It'll be like random girls that I've like talked to, and they exuded like energy of just like poise and confidence and grace, and I remember that. I'm specifically thinking of Ziggy.
Yeah.
There he is. But no, like I'll meet a girl for like the first time, maybe one time. That's all it takes. And she'll leave an impact on me to where I'll think like, I wish I was more like her.
Like my mannerisms.
Right. I wish I was more like, I don't know what the word is, like graceful.
I like the terms you used, poised and confident and graceful. I like those.
And so
those are good.
Then whenever I get into a situation where I'm dealt with a conflict or criticism or something negative, for some reason, I always think back to like that random girl that I met at the grocery store or something.
I'm gonna act like her.
And I think, what would she do? What would that beautiful like goddess of an angel? Yeah, like that blonde girl that talked to me one time that had this beautiful angelic voice that was so kind. Like, what would she do? And then I like try to.
I love that.
Yeah, and so it's so weird. Like, it's always just random people.
I love that. And then the next one just says exactly pretty much what we said before, but to respond to the tone and not, you know, I mean, don't respond to the tone, respond to the actual content. So it basically says on here, like whenever someone's telling you criticism, you think about it in your head in the voice of somebody that you admire as well. So instead of it being, you know, the boss that you don't like, or that, you know, that frenemy that you have, or something along those lines.
Jesus Christ himself is looking at you.
Think that it's either your best friend or your mom or your sister or, you know, your spouse or whatever is saying those things to you. And how would you take it if someone close to your heart was saying those things to you?
That's
you know,
really
how would you respond that way? So I really like that, because there definitely, for me, it definitely depends on the person, whether or not I'm gonna listen to you or not. You know, I know that some people in my life don't have my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
That goes for everybody. Not every single person in everyone's life has their best interest at heart.
What?
There's always a sense of competition among friends in general.
Yeah.
There's always, I mean, someone trying to one-up you. You know, there's always people judging you. Like, and that's fine. It's normal. But how would you respond if it was your husband telling you that, or if it was your mom or your best friend, like I said?
I don't know. I just think about Jesus. Like, literally, like if Jesus looked me in the face and said, maybe you could do it this way, I'd be like, I'm doing it this way for the rest of my life.
Great point. Yep. You know, so instead of it being that boss that you don't like, or that friend that you don't respect, or the relative that doesn't know anything about you but decides to tell you on Christmas that, you know what you should do is this. Like, okay, I'm not going to listen to you, but let's say.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, thanks, Aunt Carol.
Remember on the podcast when you said this? I think you could have said it like this.
You could have said it a little bit. An impersonation of me?
God. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, so the next one is acknowledge your feelings and do some self-care. Criticism can hurt no matter how helpful, but it's important to let yourself feel. So this one actually says to let yourself feel those emotions. For me, personally, I think that when people give me criticism, I actually take it like to heart so bad that I
Yes.
I like overcompensate the next time, you know?
Yes.
So let's say, oh, hey, like, you know, your handwriting looks a little sloppy. I'm typing everything and printing it and highlighting and color coding. And I'm like, you know, I definitely overcompensate for the things that I get criticized about. And that actually might be a flaw because maybe I shouldn't take it too personally. But I really like that.
And maybe
point
it could
because
just
of
be
that.
their opinion. Like maybe they just don't like that way, but other
Exactly.
people might. They always say you're your own worst critic. Do you think that you're your own you're like harshest critic on yourself, or do you think other people are harder on
No,
you?
me for sure.
I think for me it's the opposite.
That's funny. No, I think myself for sure. And I've actually gotten that before from like other supervisors and bosses that like, you know,
You're too hard on yourself?
Yeah, like they'll tell me something and I'll be like, what? And then I'll do it perfect the next time and the next time and the next time. And then I'll be like, what else? You know, like tell me what else I did wrong and I'll fix it right now. I get kind of weird about that
Ziggy,
kind of
what
stuff.
about you?
I wouldn't say that I'm my own worst critic. I don't get criticized very often.
Oh.
Anyways.
I do react just like Alyssa was talking about just now. If I do get criticized or if I do something wrong, I like have a running mental list of things that I will never let happen again.
Yeah, me
especially
too.
with like if I mess up a show on the studio or something like that, and I didn't even know it was a problem, I immediately add it to like the checklist of before every show you're going to check this now because it will never happen again.
Exactly. And so for that though, do you think that that's a flaw or do you think that that's a good thing?
Oh,
that
I think it makes me better at my
I think
job.
it's a little bit of both because it's like, wow, I really sat on that and marinated myself in that one situation for that long when in reality to the person who told me that, like maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, yes, fix it, but you don't need to, you know, have a heart attack about it.
Well,
like,
I think that might be the difference is you seem to take a little bit of that as more of like a projection of who you are. I don't take it that way. I take it more as I made a mistake or this was wrong or this was done incorrectly for whatever reason. And I don't necessarily take that as a criticism of me. I separate my work from who I am as a human being.
That's good.
And so I think that is an important thing that you have to be able to do.
Yeah, definitely.
What a great point.
Your
Yeah,
self-worth
I have
has
trouble
nothing
with
to
that.
do with the stuff that you create.
I have trouble with that. I definitely
Oh
take it
God, if
personally.
I thought, and I know especially younger kids, if everything that I created had to do with like how good I am as a person or my self-worth, oh my God, like my self-esteem would be so low.
Yeah.
Anytime someone would say that something is bad or gross or I'm untalented, I would just be like crying every day.
Well, I think that, and this is gonna sound a little bit like cocky, I guess, but one of the biggest like things that people tell me is that I work hard, that I'm a hard worker, and to me, like, I work just as hard as everybody else, you know what I mean? But people just tell me that a lot. And to me, it's like maybe they think I work so hard because when I do get that criticism, I like, you know, go head first,
Skyrocket.
dive in and have a meltdown and fix it and overcompensate and do all these things to make it better and then keep doing all those things forever. And then it just feels normal to me after a while because I've been doing it that way for so long. So I don't know.
I don't think that's a negative at all because I'm actually, and I've noticed this and I'm trying to change, but I'm very much the opposite, where if I hear criticism, I automatically think you're wrong.
I'm right.
My stuff is good. I'm not going to listen to you. And I never go into overload of I'm going to change. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be like, you know, what Ziggy was saying and have that mental list. I've really never been that way. And I'm trying to be more like that. I don't know if it's like an egotistical thing, but anytime that I've ever received like negative feedback on something I've created, I always justify it in my head why they're wrong and why
you created
I'm
it that way.
Good. Yeah, and why I'm perfect.
Gotta tell you, in art school, like that is the big thing that you learn is you have to learn how to take criticism, and the people that don't or the people that push back on every little thing, those are the worst people to deal with in critique.
Well, I'm not. I'm just saying I used to be that way, but what you're saying about art school, that truly being in photography classes really helped me to switch that mindset because like I said before, we had to give negative criticism to every work, even our professor's work. We had she was brilliant and we had to tell her
lighting's
I
bad.
didn't like this. Yeah, your exposure was off. And it's crazy because we would even look up professionals and people that are so talented that were better than us, and we had to give negative criticism. So it was easier for us, and it started to become easier for me when people would be like, you know, you didn't do good with this.
I like that. How they did that dynamic for you, because I had only one class ever in college that did that for me, and we had to, it was just a partner, like, hey, pick a partner, read their story, you know, because I was in news classes, read their story and, you know, find 5 things wrong with it, whether it's grammatical issues, whether it's, you know,
but you have to find,
you know,
5
whatever.
things.
We had to find 5, but it was only one time with one person. Like, we didn't have to do like the whole class or like the teacher or whatever. It was just like, hey, the person sitting to your left, like, you know, find 5 things on their paper. They'll find 5 things on yours, fix them, and then turn it in. And that was it. So I like that dynamic a lot. Going back to that thing that you said earlier about giving criticism, because now we're going to transition into how to give criticism properly. Some of us as millennials are in leadership roles. I was until recently. I'm in a pretty big leadership role, and I know that, you know, you have your own company. So obviously, whenever you hire people, you know, you're kind of in those leadership roles. So, you know, it's important for us to discuss how to criticize people effectively, you know, on the flip side. So going back to that thing you talked about earlier about giving a compliment first, it's actually called the sandwich method. So basically what it says, well, it's called the feedback sandwich method, but same thing. Basically what it says is, you know, you give somebody a compliment, then you give them your, you know, negative feedback, and then you give them another compliment on the opposite end.
So you're not just like digging at them the whole time.
Yeah, it softens the blow for sure, you know, or you could do it the opposite way when, you know, if they really are messing up frequently and you're, you know, maybe at like a frustration, like a level with that employee or with that friend or whatever the case may be, you give them a criticism, you give them a compliment, and then you loop back to that criticism or even give them a separate one.
Criticism, because they're awful.
But either way, with the sandwich method, there is some positive feedback involved, and that's what softens the blow to anybody. I mean, it definitely would for me, you know, like,
it
hey,
would for me too.
You know, on this report, you know, you were supposed to put, you know, this number in this column instead, but great job with the color coding in the organization. But again, this number belonged here, you know, or whatever, you know. So that to me would soften the blow.
And I think naturally as humans, we kind of gravitate towards that method, just because, I mean, most people may not be like this, but as women, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. It's just, it's kind of easier just to like say things and then be like, oh, that could have been a little harsh, so I'm going to say this and soften the blow a little. So, because some people might be a little sensitive, and so without even thinking about it, you could say some things that are, you know, more helpful to them and not hurt their feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially as females, that's for sure. I don't know if guys like have the same level of like sympathy, I guess, whenever they're giving criticism. What do you think, Ziggy?
No. No. I have no problem just going up and telling someone like you did wrong.
You did a mess up.
Yeah, but I think that that's the thing is to me it's more of a mindset from like a boss or a leader perspective is if you are using that as an exercise, if you are using that practice, what's important is it trains you to not only look at the mistake. There's other, like, even if a mistake happens, there can be good things in there.
Yeah.
So when you are giving that criticism, you are also training yourself of this is not the word. This is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
it's
also,
resetting
again,
your priorities.
Yeah, it depends on the person too, though, because, you know, like I said, whenever I was in my leadership role in a restaurant, like I knew that there were some of my employees that were a lot more sensitive than the others. So for the sensitive ones, you know, I'd be like, hey, great job with this, but let's focus on this. Again, great job. You know, and then to the people that I know that could handle it, like, hey, you really messed that up and I'm upset. I need you to fix it. You know, so it's just, it really depends on the person that you're talking to too. And I feel like as leaders or bosses or whatever, you have a firm grasp on how each of your employees' personalities are and their emotion levels. Firmly grasp it. And their, you know, levels of emotion and things like that. So that's how you
and I think it's also important to be very specific with your criticism.
Yes.
And don't be vague about it. Don't just say things like, oh, you good job, you did good, and then don't give any positive criticism or be like, oh, that wasn't good at all, or
you
that was terrible,
something, but it's fine. Yeah.
But then you don't. but then you're so vague that they don't know how to improve. If you're going to give feedback or criticism, tell them how they can improve. That's the whole point, or else you just sound like a hater. And
don't do that again, but then don't tell them what that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, you skipped a step, but it's fine.
Yes.
We're just going to move on. Like, saying things like that, you're not going to get anywhere, and you're just going to end up hurting yourself in the long run anyways by not training people properly.
Yeah, communication is honestly, like, so important when you really think about it. Just being open and being honest. Don't be vague about things. I honestly hate vagueness so much. I hate it when people aren't upfront and straight with me. Like, one of the most important things to me, this is kind of like a little bit off topic, when people beat around the bush, I hate that. Yeah. I would just love it if you're just upfront with me.
Give it to me straight. Be nice.
Give it to me straight.
Yeah.
And I don't care about hurt feelings. I don't care if you think you're going to hurt my feelings. I don't care if I think I'm going to hurt your feelings. And, you know, I've lost friendships over that because I say some things to people and it's a little harsh, but I mean well. And I'm saying it because I care about you and I want you to improve. And
again,
it's how
you say it, not what you say.
Exactly.
Yeah, it says to break down the feedback into key points and not just give them a big old speech paragraph and not allow them to interact with you as well. So saying stuff like, you know, hey, this is what you did wrong and this is why, and you know what, this is terrible and blah, blah, blah. Like, just like, hey, 2 things real quick regarding the last thing that we did, you know, and like, here's this first one. Do you understand? Okay, great. Here's the next one. Do you understand? Awesome. Let's move on.
And then talk about each action. Like, comment on the action that can happen for each step. So like, oh, you did this. Okay, well, next time when you do this, do that. We're being so vague right now, but
I know it sounds. I was just about to say that exact same thing. Like, we sound vague, and we're saying not to be vague.
I hate vagueness.
I've got an example of like how to give specific instructions.
There we go.
Yeah.
So
give us an example.
The other day, one of our interns was running a show, and I was supervising it in the other room. The equipment glitched. It wasn't his fault. So I came in and showed him, like, this is how you troubleshoot this. And when I came in, he was working to troubleshoot it, but he was doing it the wrong way. And so after the show, I showed him, you know, this is how you do it. Don't worry about it. But it was very promising because when I came into the room, you weren't panicking.
Yeah.
You were trying to solve the situation on your own.
Nice.
So you did one thing wrong, but it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't your fault that it happened, and you were working to fix it. That is good.
That's all we asked for. Yeah, exactly. And then it also says, like, you know, give recommendations on how to fix the problem, but be specific about even the recommendations. So let's say somebody's making a PowerPoint, and, you know, instead of saying, hey, this is too long, make it shorter. Well, how short do you want it? Like, why is it too long? Like, you know, hey, instead of having 10 slides, just condense it down to maybe 2 or 3. Say stuff like that, you know, make it really specific. And that way there's no room for more error. Because if you let more error happen because you're being vague about instructions, then you're just going to beat down that person even more. And you're going to really kill their confidence even further than you may already have with the first criticism.
Yeah, and it's also important not to make assumptions about things. And I have some examples of assumptions that you could make and then ways to clarify it and not make assumptions.
Oh, good.
So a criticism for like a speech, someone's giving a speech. If you say it was mediocre, they sounded nervous, and they weren't able to lead the audience. That's a criticism. It's a little harsh saying mediocre, but, you know, it's the opinion of the critic. But then an assumption would be they were bad because they have no public speaking experience. Well, we don't know that for sure. So anytime that you are giving criticism, you can't just blatantly say your opinion all the time. You need to know the facts beforehand.
Well, and you know what? I really like that point, because one of the biggest issues that millennials, I think, are facing right now is trying to enter the job market and then being denied because we don't have any experience. Like, well, how do you know I don't have any experience? Like, did you even read my resume, or did you just see, like, the age and how I just graduated and said no?
You don't know the experience you've had, because you actually do have more experience than the average kid that graduated high school and even in college.
You mean me specifically?
Yes, you specifically. When you graduated high school and you went to college, you did have more experience than the kids that just took the basic classes. And so for someone to be like, oh, well, you don't have that much experience, you're going to start at the bottom like everybody else, that's not necessarily true.
Because there are those people that work throughout college and get those internships and do those important, you know, tasks, and, you know, maybe the real world, like, hiring, you know, people just think, oh, well, college experience doesn't count. Well, it does count. Like, you know, I mean, definitely. To a certain extent, you know, I get that, you know, not all of it would, but yeah, I really like that example because of that, because I see so many things on social media about like, well, how am I supposed to get experience if you won't hire me? And it's a good point. I don't know.
I hate to loop back to this real quick, but one of the most soul crushing things that I've ever seen in my life was I have seen TV writers have people come up to them and ask them if it was their first time doing comedy.
Yikes!
Like. Ooh. Everyone has a bad set.
Oh, is it your first time?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I actually, that's so funny.
Been doing this for years.
Last night, I was talking to somebody, and they were like, pretty much, they weren't criticizing me at all, but it was a client, and she said something to the extent of like, I know you're new to this. And it kind of like, it threw me off
but
because I'm not.
Yeah.
And I quickly corrected her, and I said, actually, no, I have shot at over 100 weddings, and I have made countless videos. I can't even count. Probably
just
up
because
in the
I'm
hundreds.
young. Yeah, like just because I look young doesn't mean that I've never done this before.
She basically wanted a discount, and she hadn't really seen my website yet. She found I think it was a referral, and she said something to the extent of like, I know you're new to this, so I would like a discount or something because I was young and I was inexperienced. And that kind of hurt a little bit.
Ouch.
I was like, I am not new to this.
Well, and that's one of the biggest, you know, challenges that millennials face nowadays is, you know, trying to prove themselves, you know, to people just based on our age, because the word millennial has such a negative connotation attached to it. And it's there's actually several research studies that talk about which generation are people thinking of when they discuss millennials. So there's the me generation, the me decade, and all this. And people don't realize that people who are 18, 19 years old right now are not considered millennials. It's the generation below the millennials. And so the age range is what's really confusing people.
What are those 18, 19-year-olds called?
Is that
Gen X, or is that before us?
No, Gen X, I believe, is before us. Hold on one second. So it basically just says that one of the biggest problems that millennials face is identity confusion. And it says that, you know, there seems to be confusion regarding the years millennials were born. Most researchers argue that millennials are born between 1980 and 1996. So 18-year-olds right now were born in like 2000. So that's 4 years afterwards. I'm also really good at math. And then it also says the Pew Research Center says that they were born between 1977 and 1992. So that, I mean...
77, man.
That's what it says. So it says...
Still live with their parents?
It says that there are 40-year-old millennials. I don't know if that's accurate, but it does say that the Pew Research Center.
I'm pretty sure 32 or 34 is the cutoff. Is what
I think it's
like
between
the Google definition.
I think it's between 19 and 34 right now.
There's so many different definitions for millennial, but what it boils down to is the people that are lazy, entitled, don't want to work, think everything should be handed to them on a silver spoon, blah, 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 blah. Those aren't the people that are in their 20s and 30s working so hard for so little money, doing the best that they can. I don't know a single person, and maybe it's because I don't hang out with lazy people. I don't know a single person that lives at home, has no job, doesn't do anything, thinks that they should be given everything.
I do. But the problem is with that whole argument is that there are people like that in every generation.
True.
Every single one. I mean, I know several 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds even, that, you know, are still living with their parents and gambling and doing drugs.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with living with your parents. Why is that such a negative connotation?
I don't know. I moved back in with my parents when I first graduated college. My first job out of college wasn't paying a lot of money, and my husband, well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but he was still at school. So I was like, well, once he moves back, we'll just move in together. There's no point in me getting my own place now when he's going to graduate in 6 months, and we were just going to move in together, you know? So, but honestly, I think it's kind of smart to move back in with your parents, and we've actually talked about this on the show before.
We've gone over this before.
But, you know, you're saving money that way, you know, and it's all about like setting yourself up for success. And if people think that millennials aren't successful because they're living with their parents, the reality is like they're saving money to be successful because, you know, what's the biggest thing that's tied to success? Money.
I think what's crazy though is that, and we have this little infographic here.
So speaking of money, here we go. The median household income, and this is as of 2013, so it's the little bit outdated, but this is the most recent study that I could find. Millennials in 2014 were making more money between the ages of 18 and 33 than the boomers were. So it's all about like the age, you know what I mean? And you know, my parents always say this to me, like, oh my God,
that's
like
crazy.
You got, you know, I hear this all the time whenever people say, like, you're going to have no money whenever you graduate, like college is going to be terrible. You shouldn't get married till you're 30 because you're not going to have any money. Fun. Like, and this isn't about, you know, like talking about money is kind of tacky, but regardless, like my husband and I were making more money than my parents were at their age, you know, whenever they were our age, and then his parents too, you know, so it's like, it's not about like the age, it's about the person. Yeah. It's always about the individual. It's about the person. I think
every generation has always talked smack about the generation under them and the generation under them.
Yeah,
that's how it's always been.
And here we are talking about how, like, oh, the people you think that we are the people below us, so we're doing the same thing. But one of the myths says that the millennials are the me generation. So the me generation
I was going to touch base on that.
Yeah, it's actually, I guess the boomers were the first generation to be called the me generation.
Interesting.
And now we are, and also the generation below us is too being called the me generation. And it all started with selfies.
See, what I think, what I was going to say is the internet right now is so prominent. It wasn't like this in the 90s at all. And the thing is that we see everything now. We see all the statuses. We see how shitty people are. We see the people from high school posting anything and everything they want on Facebook, all the statuses, all the selfies, all the YouTube videos of what I do every single day because I'm vlogging and that's the thing to do now. So we're
just keeping up with the times, man.
People have always been like this, but now we see it. And I think that's the big difference, is humanity hasn't changed. People have always been shitty like this.
Well,
but now we are recording everything and we're typing out everything.
I agree with you to a certain extent. I do think that that having social media so ready and handy has made it slightly worse. Yeah. But I do agree that people have been always selfish. I mean, that's just human nature, is to be selfish. It's Darwinism, if you think about it. Survival of the fittest. You're only worried about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's it. Another myth says that millennials are unsatisfied with work. We've actually talked about this before too, where we know people our age who have quit their jobs that were good entry-level jobs because they felt like they were deserving of something more. Yeah. Yes, that happens. That happens in every generation, though. And this, a study conducted by the Journal of Business and Psychology reports that compared to boomers and Gen Xers, millennials actually reported higher levels of overall company and job satisfaction with security, recognition, career development, and advancement, and reported similar levels of satisfaction with pay and benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most reliable source for something like that, is the Journal of Business and Psychology. They conduct studies like this a lot. Maybe not the most reliable source. Ziggy's shaking his head at me. Maybe not the number one, but it's definitely up there. I mean, if you ask me. So that's another myth that's kind of like debunked, and some criticism that millennials face is, you know, oh, you're just switching jobs left and right, you know, blah, blah, blah. The fact is, people back in the day when there were less jobs, people would stay at those jobs for 20, 30 years because that was the norm, you know?
That was.
I think it's very normal and common nowadays for people to kind of switch around. I do think that there's kind of that level though, like, oh, you've only worked there for 6 months and you're going to quit for something else. Like, put your time in, you know?
Yeah.
Let's also not forget that on average, people who frequently job hop make significantly more amounts of money than people stay in one position.
Because you could be, you know, what's called, you know, an account manager at one job, but the same position is called an account executive somewhere else. You know, like if you think about just the titles of jobs and switching around to make more money, I mean,
we also have new jobs they didn't have before, like social media manager. There was no such thing as that. And I just found out the other day that those people who like do like Twitter and stuff like that for celebrities, they can make like $70,000, $80,000 a year.
That's
just
so
doing
dumb.
Social media. But those jobs didn't exist before. So it's so crazy that
a lot of technology jobs in general. Yeah, not just social media, but just technology developing in general, and lots of IT jobs now that are out there to help out with all this technology that no one knows how to use.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's true. That's
true. Yeah, $70,000 I saw.
So that's another one. Another, you know, myth that this website's. By the way, this website is called a Medium Corporation, and it's basically just a list of millennial myths and some criticisms that we're facing that actually aren't true. So one of them Another one says millennials lack loyalty to their employer. Personally, I just left the job that I was at for 8 years. So, I mean, 8 years is a long time for somebody my age, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
that is a long time.
It's like 30% of my life.
Yeah. But you left, so you're not loyal anymore.
Right. But, you know, I could have left after 6 months or after a year,
true,
you know?
That's
So,
true.
But it basically says, contrary to popular perceptions, millennials actually stay with their employers longer than Generation X workers did at the same ages.
This is so weird that all these
from
statistics are going against what people say all the time.
Yeah, well, because people don't take the time to look it up. But it basically, this claim is from the White House 15 Economic Facts About Millennials. So that's where that claim is from. Just kind of citing sources here so that we don't, you know, people aren't like, where'd you get that information from?
Which White House?
What do you mean?
The White House.
When was that particular White House article published?
Oh, you mean which president? Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. It just says that. And then it also says millennials don't know how to work hard. God, if I had $1 for every time I heard that. Yeah. Have you ever heard that before?
No. Personally,
you haven't heard that millennials don't work hard?
Oh no, I've heard that, but personally, I've heard that I have really good work ethic from every employer I've had.
Yeah, I've been told the same thing.
I'm just kidding. Like
I'm
not
just
like
amazing.
I'm not trying to like
Oh,
toot my own horn, like kiss my own ass or anything. But like I don't know. I've just always heard I had good work ethic, but in general, total myth. I don't know anyone that like. But I've heard
there are people like that in every generation.
I've heard it a lot, though, that millennials have bad work ethic. I was in a business class, and in the business class, like, my professor was going on and on and on about how, like, as a collective, my lecture hall had bad work ethic, and he was pretty much just dogging us. And I was like, you don't know me.
Yeah. You don't. It's true. Like you can, how can you really tell? I don't know. But something else I've always heard, like some more criticisms about millennials, is that like they're not equipped to handle real life because of bad parenting. Have you ever heard that one?
No, I haven't.
I definitely have. Yeah, Ziggy has too. He's nodding his head over there for sure. Like
but we are the kids that got spanked, and we're the kids that had like parents that were like,
I didn't get no participation trophy.
Yes, we didn't get the participation trophies, or like we got spanked. If you lost, you're zero. Like I don't get it.
I know some kids that got the belt. I didn't get the belt.
I did. I got shoes thrown at me. I had a remote thrown at my face.
My mom used the wooden spoon, and every time she ran into the kitchen after we were bad, we knew she was grabbing that spoon. We were like, run.
We were like beat, and it wasn't abuse back then. Back then, that was normal parenting to get beat up.
We didn't go through corporal punishment though, like in schools or anything. So like you think about like it's gotten like more lenient and more lenient as
they actually legalized it in some states that you can spank kids' booties. But they have to. The parents have to sign a consent form though.
Fair enough. Yeah, so the parenting thing. I don't really understand that. Okay, another one, millennials are lazy. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We get it, yeah. Won't do the work that they're told to do at work. That's crazy. I will say this, though. I do know people who on their lunch breaks who are our age will go somewhere and get an alcoholic beverage during their lunch break. Do you know anybody that works in the corporate world that does that?
They smoke weed.
Yeah, or do that. Yeah, do drugs or do alcohol.
Alcohol for sure
during their breaks. Okay,
I've smoked
that is the type of behavior that makes us look bad as a generation.
But I think that happened back in the day,
it
and
probably did. And people who are 40 probably do the same thing. At least one beer with lunch, like whatever.
It's just people with a selective memory wanting to find something that confirms their already held beliefs.
Exactly.
Confirmation bias.
Anyways, we hope that this episode helped out with those people who are in leadership roles. And you know what? You don't even have to be in a leadership role to listen to this, because in reality, like everybody should be preparing to possibly become a leader one day.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want, to have those skills in general to be a leader? Maybe there's like a group presentation that you're doing and somebody's got to take the reins, and it might as well be you. So thanks for listening to the show. We really appreciate everybody that tunes in on every single Tuesday from 7 to 8.
Every single Tuesday. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope that this helped in any way. If you are a millennial and you've been criticized before, leave the story in the comments below.
And we would love to read it and talk about it. Yes.
Talk to us.
Talk to us.
Please.
We would love to interact with you and hear your stories and your thoughts about any criticisms that you've received or criticisms that you were given to somebody.
Or maybe give your own advice on handling criticism.
Yes, please comment below.
I can always help with those.
And tune in next week for another episode of the Millennial Monologues podcast. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.